Back before I became a custodian, worked at the local school district, and faced the ghost boy at the school I was positioned at, I was working on getting some custodial experience. Goodwill was offering training for a short list of career paths, and I needed the training to even apply for the school district job. It was very tough, and I had considered a number of times about quitting the program, but I pushed myself to continue. I wanted to prove to myself that I can finish something, even if it was extremely stressful and hard to do. So, I kept going. Getting myself up early in the morning around 3 a.m. or so, get ready and be at Goodwill before 4 a.m. I drove down the same exact pathway each time. Nothing was standoffish during any of those days except one, and here is what happened. It was very dark in the early morning, to the point where it felt like it was nighttime. With my car lights on to help me see through the darkness, I was coming up to a stop sign and saw a completely light-coloured cyclist heading to where the two streets crossed paths. Since he had the right of way, I would have to stop and let the cyclist go through before proceeding to my destination. However, when I reached the stop sign and waited for the cyclist to pass, they never showed up. Confused, I glanced left and right to see if he was coming or if he had already passed. I saw nothing, not even if he jumped onto the sidewalk and went an opposing direction. Just nothing. I recalled blinking quickly and talked out loud to myself, saying something like, "What the?" After a few moments of waiting and questioning what I had seen, I went forward and made it to Goodwill. I spoke to my training instructor and told her that I think I saw a ghost cyclist. Back in 2015, when I was 12, I went on my school Year 6 reward camp. It was a place called Woodman Point. The place is located in the midst of suburbia, but its surrounding bushland made it feel remote. In 1886, it was a quarantine station, isolating immigrants with smallpox, the bubonic plague, and even the Spanish flu, which means someone had to at least died there. The facility continued being used as such until 1979, when it was closed. Fast forward to modern day, where it is now a recreational camp that hosts many schools and has an indoor rock climbing area called the Cube, with a flying fox on it. The camp had dormitories that were split up into genders, and luckily, I was placed with my friends. The camp itself was fun. We played games with the counselors in the bush surrounding it, built rafts on the beach, and tried out the Cube and all of its glory. One night before dinner, our teachers organised a group activity where each dormitory had to find glow sticks, with the dormitory who finds the most glow sticks winning. This is where the scary begins. Our group was made up of 7 or 8 students, and we were arranged with 2 looking in front of us, 2 looking behind us, and the rest of us looking to the sides. That was where I was arranged. Sounds like a smart game plan, but you'd be wrong, as our group found not a single glow stick. We were walking down a path with 2 buildings on either side when the 2 in front saw what they described as a pale, skinny, naked old guy running in between the buildings. No one else saw it, and we began talking shit and teasing the 2 who saw it about ghosts and pedophiles. We were about to round a corner when the thing peeped around it and looked at us. The exchange only lasted a few seconds, but in that time, I noticed how frail it was. It was really pale with a small mouth, and I don't remember seeing eyes, just sockets. You know that famous picture of the rake? That's what it looked like. Every one of us saw the same thing, and we quickly turned and ran back to our teachers crying in fear. Of course, the teachers didn't believe us and said it was just the light of a torch. There was another school doing their reward camp, and they could have been doing activities, but we didn't hear other kids, and it was no flashlight. Sometimes I come across one of my old friends who was there at the local amusement park, and sometimes we still talk about it. Scariest shit I've ever experienced in my life, and the only paranormal occurrence I've ever witnessed. Okay, so I am from a really small town. This also means that I had a very small high school and a very small graduating class. It has been small and will remain small for many years. When I was attending high school, I was also working there in the summer as a student sweeper. One day, my friend and I stayed after work to hear the story of Mary, and all the things that would happen and had happened over the years. Lights turning on by themselves, windows opening and closing, weird crap like that. So way back in the 60s, Mary was a theatre nerd and also loved basketball. One day she was playing in the old gym, which is where they built the auditorium of today. While she was playing, she got hot and went to open up some of the windows. The janitor had not left out a ladder, so she climbed up to the top of the bleachers, stepped over the bar, and reached for the latch on the window to pull it open. As she reached, she lost her grip on the rail and apparently was found dead on the bleachers. For many, many years, the coaches and basketball teams would be at the gym practicing after school, and suddenly all the windows would just fly open and close, or the lights would turn off. Some more accounts were from the custodians. They would be in there to clean the windows, and their ladder would be moved or just fall over, never, while they were on the ladder, or their mop bucket would be pushed slowly across the gym floor when they were cleaning. As you can tell, Mary was not a mean ghost or whatever she would be considered. So in the late 90s, they tore down the old gym and built a big-ass auditorium right on top of it with a connected gym. So my friend and I were curious. We wanted to know if Mary was still there haunting the grounds, or if she had found peace and moved on. We messed around with the gym. We could not get anything, no signs or sounds or crazy events. So sat down and remembered what our boss had said a few weeks before, that she was also a theatre nerd. They also built an auditorium. So we went in the auditorium, lights on, goofed around, tried some more, and still nothing. We were still student sweepers, so we still had our keys to the auditorium. We came back that night. Very nonchalantly, I pull out my keys and open the main door to the auditorium, and we both head in. The only light was the light coming from the main hall. As we go to walk in, my friend continues to hold the door open so I can see to get to the lights. On my way to the lights, I see a girl, or what appeared to be a girl, sitting in a specific section of the auditorium seats about 10 rows away from the stage. I ask my friend if he can see her too, and he is just frozen. I walked up to about 10 rows behind her and said, "Mary? Is that you?" It stood up, turned around, and stared at the both of us. I still get goosebumps when I get to this part. I did not move. My friend leaves. As he leaves, of course, the door shuts, so now it is just black. There is no seeing anything. I start walking backwards, feeling behind me, and it gets cold. We are talking like walk-in freezer cold. I move faster and get to the door. I'm still walking backwards at this point. As I push the door open with my back, I look to where I saw Mary, and she was no longer there. I am a custodian at a university. I started working at this university in July of this year. I had heard other custodians talk about haunted buildings, and even some of them had pretty strange pictures to back up their claims. A few months ago, 3 of us got moved into the physics building, because the custodians there had let it get kind of bad. We were very disheartened, but in 2 weeks we had the place looking pretty decent again. I work on the 2nd floor by myself. During the first week, I started to notice strange things, creepy feelings, weird noises and such. I was able to tell myself it was just my imagination or is just an old building. One morning, I dust mopping and I heard what sounded like someone throw a trash can down the stairs. I thought the 2 guys on the 1st floor were being too lazy to carry it down to the basement, the elevator being out of order, so I yelled down, "Hey! You all quit fucking around down there," and went to see what on earth they were doing. I went downstairs, but neither of them were there, so I went back to their floor to find both of them were busy, one cleaning the bathrooms and one sweeping out the auditorium. I asked, "Which one of you guys threw a trash can down the stairs?" Both of them said they hadn't gone downstairs or been working near them, so I asked if they had heard that loud noise. They gave me a weird look. Neither of them knew what I was talking about, so I returned to my duties a bit shaken and curious to what had caused that noise. A little after that, I was singing while I worked. It was one of my sad Irish tunes I like. When I finished my song, I was standing by my janitor's closet when I heard a woman's voice singing down the hall. So I started down the hall to see who was singing. About halfway down the hall, the singing stopped. I continued to the end of the hall to find myself standing alone. No one had been there. I started telling the other 2 custodians about the weird things, and they both laughed and said I had been mixing chemicals in my mop bucket and it was all in my head. The noises and singing continued off and on. One morning, all 3 of us were on my floor for our break, and we heard the singing. One of the guys asked if I had a radio up there, and I said no, that's what I've been talking about. He said it's got to be someone's radio somewhere and dismissed it. The morning of Halloween, I was on the first floor talking to our boss, who had come to check on us. The guy who dismissed the singing had gone to the second floor to get the trash from the room since I was distracted by the boss. All of a sudden, the guy from the second floor came running down the stairs and said, "Who is fucking around on the second floor?" We told him we had all been on the first floor the whole time. He told us that he was collecting trash at the end of the hall where I had heard the singing, and loud banging noises started coming from one of the labs. He thought someone was breaking in until he realized he was on the second floor, so I decided to go up to investigate with him. We went into the lab to find no one there. I told him I was going to try that ghost hunter thing and try to get a recording of it and maybe it would talk. He said he wasn't staying in the room and went to finish the trash. I stayed and pulled out my voice recorder on my phone and started asking questions. When behind me, I heard a couple loud bangs. I turned around to find an empty part of the room. I immediately ran and showed the other guy the recording. We didn't go back up on the second floor that day. A few days later, the boss was visiting again, and we told him the story and showed him the recording. He got excited and wanted to make it happen again. So we went back to that lab, opened the door, and stood out in the hall. I told him that it seems to react to music, so the boss started singing some song from the 70s, and no sooner had he started, the banging started from inside the room. He smiled, and we went inside to find no one in there. So we closed up the lab and returned to the guys on the second floor and told them what happened. We have all continued to hear voices singing and loud bangs coming from different parts of the building. One guy worked by himself one morning and is so shaken by whatever happened to him, he won't talk about it. So far, that's all I have. Sometimes, if a custodian says there is something weird in their building, the boss will send me over there for a morning to try to find something. Like the old building that just had renovations done, the girl there was afraid to work by herself, so the boss sent me for the morning. I didn't find anything there though. Thank you for spending time with me. If you have a true story you'd like to share, something eerie, strange, or unforgettable, send them to my email in the description below. clairetruestory@gmail.com. I'd love to feature your story in an upcoming video. Until next time, stay safe, stay warm, and stay cozy.